Some days will be easy, and some days will be hard. But you got to keep on pushing. Remember who you are. Some days will be easy, and some days will be hard. But you got to keep on pushing. Remember who you are. Avocado, 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 avocado.
All right, January day 15, all avocados. All right, so what do we got here? Let's just run through this quick. I didn't do too much processing on this one. I have more concrete instruments. What's this one called? The codec kit. I'll talk about this instrument super quick, concrete. I don't remember if it's incomplete or not, but I love it. It's super tight. Basically, it's like all these keys down here are different samples, and each one of these samples, so let's say you hit this one. Actually, I think I used this one. You can focus map it, which means that it then like stretches across almost the entire keyboard anyway. Which is really cool, but also like it's just a bunch of samples and you can control all of their like effects, like their reverb and delay and all their attack and decay and ADSR and everything. You can control them all just by hitting any one of these samples. Like it opens up a world of effects. So it's like a really good way to just get a ton of sounds that you have a lot of control over really quickly. I love this instrument. And on top of that, there's a lot of cool sounds in it that I use a lot. And so I use those for the drums. Drums sound like this. Put in some more hi-hats and stuff later. And all that is from that one kit. Which one? What is it called again? The codec kit. And you can see like there's loads and loads of kits. I was playing with another one earlier, the Buchla percussion kit, and it has lots of like analog synth style sounds, and there's just so much variation. Yeah, it's a really nice way to get lots of little percussive sounds. Anyway, cool. Love that one. Here for the chord, we have an M1 instrument called Atmosphere. I think this was in Bells and Mallets. Where is it? There it is. There it is right there. And that sounds and looks like this. Oh, I'll mute that. Yeah. And so the chords here are all like chromatically moving slash chords, basically. Here we have like an E flat over an A flat, which is that chord that I talk about sometimes. It's the like the tonic with the natural 4 in it. Sometimes it's the root. Love that chord. And that moves to that chord again. You can see it's actually an E over an A. So the chord itself has moved up just a semitone, and I moved the root up here. But then the actual root of the chord is an F sharp, so we get a change in the type of chord that it is, which is nice, and I thought was tasty, and so I kept it. A lot of my chord progressions lately have come just from like fiddling around with like individual chords and their voice leading. So you can see like this chord progression obviously came from moving this E flat up to an E and then trying out different stuff underneath that. And so once I have one or two chords, I'll try to find some motion, and usually I can find like a good 4-chord progression or whatever in that ballpark with some fairly interesting chords. And then this chord sound, the M1 sound, I liked it just because it sounds like sort of Frank Zappa-y. Big fan. Got that Dweezil guitar. What's going on over here? Oh, this is the slap and thump. Here's your Seinfeld bass again. And that sounds and looks like this. So this plays with the movement between like the A flat and the F sharp. And on top of that, I have like F sharp major and E major triads, which is a little chord coupling trick that I found that works specifically on this chord progression. Yeah. So you could kind of jam on that all day with just E majors and F sharp majors. E major over the first half and F sharp major over the second half. And that's really all there is to it. It's then just the vocals, which has my standard chain on it, the channel EQ for the lows, a little bit of compression, Alloy 2, I turned the gain off because it was too loud. Channel EQ again for a bump of presence and cutting off a little bit of the highs. Camel Crusher British Clean, and OTT at 21%. Classic. And I've got 3 stacks of vocals here. Usually when I record vocals, let's talk about this quick. I didn't do it in this particular instance, but I'll record the vocals on their own track, and then I'll use the Waves vocal rider to even out the level. Some people do it manually, which is super dope, but I just use Waves vocal rider because I'm recording a lot of crappy vocals and I don't have time to like make them all sound great. So Waves vocal rider, quick and dirty, nice little plugin, evens it out without compressing it. And then a little bit of Melodyne, and I've been creating harmonies by melodyning the original line, make it sound nice and polished because I'm still learning to sing. And then I'll write harmonies in Melodyne by like moving the notes around while I have the original vocal line and just Melodyne soloed. So I'm writing harmonies in Melodyne as though I'm writing them with MIDI. And then later, if I like the song, I'll go back and re-record the vocal parts that I've written in Melodyne. What else? Anything else? All the drums are going through bus 10, which is my drum bus, and that's getting sent right now to bus 9, which is NY compression, audio damage rough rider, parallel compressor. The kick, I think, is this the kick? Where's the kick? This is the kick, is being sent to bus 1, which is my sidechain compressor, and that's hitting a compressor, sidechain compressor on the chord, and it's hitting track spacer on the bass. I'm talking about this plugin all the time. I feel like I talk about it to death, but people are still always like, yo, what do you do to like get your low end so clean? And it's this damn plugin, like Get Track Spacer. It's so sick. It's not expensive. It does cost money, maybe $40, but it's so sick. It's a multi-band, 35 band, I think it's 35 band EQ that you can sidechain. It's meant for sidechaining. So you like put it on the bass and you send the kick to it, and it's going to dip it'll create an EQ dip in your bass when your kick is happening. I'll show you what that looks like and what that sounds like. So when the kick is happening, it's pushing the bass out of the way just in the low frequency. So it's like way better than a sidechain compressor because it's not compressing your sound. It's just lowering the EQ a little bit. It's so much cleaner and it's real nice. And I will often combine that with an LFO tool and or a sidechain compressor so that you're not getting too much of either of the effects. And then I also have a compressor on the vocals. Why would I decide to use a compressor or an LFO tool or track spacer? They're used for different things, right? They move stuff out of the way of other stuff in specific ways. So I would use a compressor if I want the vocals to dip when the kick happens, because the vocals and the kick are in different ranges, and I want the vocal to pulse as a sort of like a glue thing. It makes the whole track feel like it's together. If the vocals don't respond in any way when the kick hits, then they don't feel like they're in the same environment necessarily. It's nice to have the vocals or the chords or the leads lower their dynamic level a little bit in response to the kick happening. It makes everything feel related and together, and that's nice. So that's when I'd use a compressor. I'd use track spacer when two things are in the same frequency range, like the kick and the bass, or the vocals and the chords, or the vocals and the leads. So often I will send the vocals. I didn't do it in this instance because quick track. Got to do this every day. I don't have time to be remembering every little production thing. God, that's a terrible excuse. But often on a finished, polished track, I will send the vocals to track spacer on anything that has sound in the vocal frequency. Anything except for the drums, probably. And so your chords and your leads, and sometimes your effects, and sometimes your bass, depending if there's high frequency on the bass, like there is on this one, I would send the vocals to that to push those things out of the way when the vocal's happening so the vocal cuts through better. And an LFO tool is a more specific sound. I know that you can set it to trigger when a kick happens. I don't know how to do that in Logic. I know you can do it pretty easily in Ableton. But LFO tool, the way I use it, is usually just for a quarter note pulse. So I would use that in a case where the song itself has a very strong quarter note pulse. Or if there's lots of kicks happening really quickly and it's like muddying up the compressor, I would consider using maybe like a ghost channel with a quarter note or a simpler rhythm for the kick. or an LFO tool to give everything in the track a bit of a simple quarter note or half note or eighth note or 16th note pulse. And that's it. That's the track. Those are my thoughts on sidechaining. January day 15. Holy smokes. We're almost done. We're like almost done the top half of January. Tomorrow, day 16, will be the middle day of January, and then, oh man, I can sleep after. That's not true. I got an album to finish. Anyway, thanks for tuning in. Catch you later.